Okay, putting it all together. Logos, pathos, and ethos. Okay, defining the academic essay. The essay that you are going to write for me, an academic essay in which we put it all together. The academic essay is composed of 3 parts. We know this already, but I'm going through it anyway. Introduction, body, and conclusion. The purpose of the essay is to communicate your research and objective views of a topic to a specific audience. This type of writing uses the rhetorical triangle to conceptualize the relationship. That means to make the relationship between the text, the author, and the audience into one. As we have seen in class and you've watched on video, the rhetorical triangle has 3 aspects, right? We've got the audience, we've got the reader, who is the reader, we've got the speaker, and we've got the message. But when you're putting the whole essay together, there are 4 parts to it. We've got the text now, which is logos, the reader, who again is pathos, and the writer, ethos. And then the essay forms the whole, because you can't just have the text. You've got to have who your reader is going to be, and you're writing to that audience, and who you are as a writer and your credibility. So this is the most important part of the essay. It's objective, relying on evidence to support your thesis rather than your personal opinion or experience or emotion to convince the reader. Supporting your position on an issue is vital. Essays don't rely on just opinion, but demand that you use some logical evidence. Some assignments will require that you only deal with primary sources, and a primary source would be the work that you are asked to interpret or respond to. For example, an essay on Plato's Republic would use Plato's Republic as the primary source. Some assignments will require secondary sources, those that are written about the primary source, or about the particular issue being discussed. An essay on Hamlet by William Shakespeare would use books, articles, videos, and reference works about Shakespeare, the literature, Hamlet, and other topics that support your interpretation of Hamlet. General reference works like Wikipedia, Webster's Dictionary, or the World Book encyclopedias are not considered academic sources, guys. They're too general and usually provide common knowledge only, so they don't really rate as research. They do have issues with timeliness and target audience and credibility. For example, Wikipedia has credibility issues because anyone can post any information on a wiki. It can take weeks for the person in charge of that entry to verify the information. Plus, wikis, a lot of them, are unsubstantiated, meaning that nobody can verify the true facts behind them. Use Wikipedia as a place to find great links to other credible sources, which are usually found at the bottom of the page. The writer or ethos. And I understand you all may be very frustrated or confused about how you're going to show how are you credible talking about a particular topic. And as I said here, this is often tricky because for beginning writers, it deals with credibility and trust. How do you build that with your audience if you're not famous or an expert in the field? 3 ways. The tone you take in your essay, and remember, tone is how you approach the subject. Are you sarcastic? Are you mocking the subject? Are you taking it seriously? Are you trying to be humorous? The tone you take in your essay is important. The presentation of your essay, if you have the grammar done well, if you have spelling done well, the style of your writing is all important, and the types of evidence you use. If you're going to stick with World Book Encyclopedia, Dictionary.com, and Wikipedia, it's not going to look like you really tried that hard. Again, you're going to get credibility by the quality of sources that you get the evidence from, and the fact that you document all of your essays, all of your evidence in the essay by using the MLA, of course. And your honest presentation not only of the strengths of your arguments, and this is important, It's not only how good your argument is, but by acknowledging that you have some weaknesses. If you acknowledge that there are some weaknesses, you don't have to say, oh yeah, my whole argument sucks, but you do have to acknowledge that every single argument has some weakness in it. And by showing you are aware of these and not afraid of them, looks even more convincing and makes you more trustworthy. Okay, the reader is pathos. This aspect or element of an essay is tricky too, because in the past you've always been told that your teacher is your audience. Well, that's not the case in writing outside of school. So for our purposes with this paper that we're going to finish and do, you're going to identify who you want to address your essay to, whether it be the school administration, your parents, your teachers, me, I don't care who, but you're going to have to identify who your audience is going to be. You're going to analyze that audience. If it's your parents, you need to consider the following things. Who are they? What do they believe? What's their educational level? Their religious and political affiliations? What prior knowledge or contact do they have with this issue? The answers to these questions will help you determine how much background information do you need to give your audience. If you are writing an essay about Paraguayan soccer and you decided I was your audience, you would have to put a lot of background information for me. One, I know the basics of soccer, but I don't know that much about it. And two, I don't know anything about the history of soccer in Paraguay. So you'd have to put a lot of background information for me. You would also need to define specific terms. If there are specific terms in Paraguay for specific things in soccer that I wouldn't know, you'd have to define that. I don't think that because I'm not a native Spanish speaker, you could assume that I would know all the soccer terms in Spanish. You have to think about what types of sources would be convincing to me and what kind of beliefs that I might hold about soccer that might be a barrier to convincing me about your position. Now remember, pathos is the emotion appeal, how you feel about something that can change depending on the mood. Remember, people's feelings are not only based usually on rational feelings, but it's also difficult proving something based on emotion. You're going to need to have logos along with pathos to make pathos hit home or make people believe your argument. Okay? The time to use emotion is usually in the conclusion. You can put some of it in the body, but usually in the conclusion, the last couple of paragraphs, you want to wrap up the essay and get the reader to think or act. And it's usually through the emotional impact of the issue that can spur somebody to do something about it. Be careful of bad pathos. Using adjectives that describe people or events. Unfair, stupid, bozo. Just think about it. I mean, you wouldn't want somebody to write a whole essay about you and call you stupid bozo or something like that, unless you really can back it up with evidence or logos to prove that somebody acted unfairly or underhandedly. You are making an emotional appeal and you will lose credibility. Okay? Your reader will not take you seriously, you'll sound immature, and you will lose credibility.